Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to see so many of you turn up. As the rest of you, I kind of forgot how all this conferencing goes. So I was like coming here, the room is empty. I was like, oh, nobody's going to show up. Real pleasure to see you all here. My name is Erik Hellman. I'm currently working as head of development for iTeam Solutions here in Stockholm. But I'm going to talk about another project that I got involved in a little bit more than a year ago, well, a year and a half, sort of. It's called Öppna Skolplattformen. So I'll start by this. How many here are parents in Stockholm with kids in Stockholm City? Yeah, I feel you. So we built an open source app on top of the Stockholm School platform because the official one didn't work. Still doesn't work. And this is a talk about that journey, how we dealt with it, and how we dealt with a very hostile API provider, as we call it. This is also an alternative title for this is how I became a parent without having any children, because I don't have any kids. It's going to be clear soon why that is a thing. Now, in 1628, 10th of August, Sweden was pretty strong military, and the king decided they're going to build the biggest and the best ship. So he decided that do this. They spent a significant portion of the GDP for Sweden to build this ship. They launched the ship, and the ship sank almost immediately, tipped over. Badly designed, and everybody involved in the project knew it was badly designed. But since the king had approved the design, nobody objected. It sank. We lifted up the ship a couple of decades ago. You can go visit the museum, the Vasa Museum. And this was the start of a recurring thing in the Swedish public sector. We'll take questions later. But like failed projects, basically, failed official projects, like really, really big projects. But about 400 years later, well, first of all, about 400 years later, we come to today. And first of all, in 2019, this is an interesting fact as well, OECD came out with a report saying Sweden sucks at digitalization. Of 32 countries they checked, we were second to last. We have open data, we have some APIs, however, they are not reusable or useful. We're second to last. And Stockholm City had decided already in 2014 to build a new school platform for all their public schools. And they launched it, and they started building it, and it turned out early on that it was like a really failed project as well. But they never stopped it. They launched the project, they launched the app. All of you who are parents in Stockholm and use this app, you know what I'm talking about. It looks like this, or it's supposed to look like this. You can log in, you can, if you're a parent, you can log in. If you're a student, you can log in, and such a thing. There's even a mobile app. But more often, it looks like this. You log in, you get a technical error. And you say, yeah, sure. I mean, there are lots of really bad websites and apps from public sector everywhere. Every country have that. You know, we all suffer from that. But how bad was it? Well, first of all, up until 2020, this project has costed 1 billion Swedish crowns, 117 million US dollars, approximately. Lots of money. What could you do with that money? You could do as India and launch a satellite to Mars. That's about how much it cost. Now, you say, well, how bad could it really be? So I worked on a lot of apps over the years. Like I started on Android, like before Android was publicly known. I've written a lot of apps. I worked on very bad apps. I worked on very good apps. I never had an app with a rating this low. I would struggle to find an app with this rating this low. Like remember this, the lowest rating you can give is 1 star, like 1.0. And the average here is 1.1, consistently. On Android and iOS. Okay? But they must have done something to improve it, added new features. Or first of all, let's look at the reviews, because this might be some of the best app reviews ever. Like the top one up there, I will translate it for you who don't read Swedish. The school platform, created by an orangutan. At the moment, chained to his arm, lowered underwater, knocking on the plastic keyboard and blowing air bubbles on the mouse. Finally managed to hit the publishing button before it swims up to the surface and call a blowfish who gets to act as a test group. The blowfish doesn't say anything, which counts as approval, and the link is sent out. This post is sponsored by Volume. Yeah, this is poetry. This might be the best app review in history. And it's like the other one is that it makes me regret I ever got children. This is worse than Corona. It works worse than my last marriage. Okay. And you will think like, okay, they would improve. We got these reviews and they would improve. This is the update history for the iOS app starting in 2019. Bug fix, bug fix, bug fix. Oh, they made a fix for Bank ID, which is the official login. Okay, bug fix, bug fix. They changed the address somewhere, so they had to make an update. They added new quick links and they added another login methods and some improvements. I guess it's better than bug fixes, and more bug fixes and more bug fixes. This is in March 2020. This is the update for iOS. The Android is similar. They haven't added anything over these years. Okay. So Christian Landgren, in November 2020, he said, okay, I'm tired of this. He has 2 kids in his Stockholm school, so he decided, I'm going to build my own app. So I'm gonna get the API. So he emailed the Stockholm City and said, give me the API. It should be an official document, so like according to the official document principle we have in Sweden, he should get it. They denied it. He tried to appeal, and they denied it again. Well, we never seen the API documentation. We don't even think it exists, so whatever. But he called out on Facebook groups and stuff like that, said, like, I'm gonna write an app. Anyone wanna help? And I'm like, sure, I got time to spare, I can help you. So I joined, and another guy, Johan Öbrink, also joined in, and we started writing the app. And it looks like this. So it actually works. You can log in. If the backend or their API fails, you get a sane error message telling you why you couldn't log in. We provide a list of all your children, so you can like navigate them. You don't have to like even log out sometimes, which is sometimes something you have to do. We provide like this nice overview for your calendar, the notifications from the schools. You can even get a list of your classmates inside the app. Very appreciated. It provides information and features that the users wanted. And you will think, why couldn't they do this? Well, we don't really know why they couldn't do this, but apparently it was impossible for them to do it themselves, so we had to build this. It took about 6 weeks to get the first version up and running from when we started. And it launched. We sold it for 12 crowns. And it was very successful. How successful? We ended up on #1 in App Store for a couple of weeks without any marketing or anything. That's nice. Okay, moving on. So how did we build it? So the important thing for us was to build something that more people can contribute to. It should be open source. It was already open source when we started. It should be something that all developers should feel comfortable using, or at least have a very low threshold, regardless what your background is. So we went with, well, the first thing we should mention is the API. How did we do that? Well, you open Chrome, you log into the website, you press F12 to get this developer console, and we check the network calls. So we got this one, okay, it looks like that. That's the network calls they make. And, well, we can get the fetch calls and see the actual APIs. I like the response there. Success, true, error, null. Okay. Also like that when you don't have any children, you still get like select children. There's empty. So we went with React Native. And if you're an app developer and you're like native, as I do, you might say, why didn't you write it in native? Well, if we would written it in native, we would have had to have two like platforms. We had to do one for iOS and Android. Not very, friendly. Maybe if we would have more people and the paid staff, we could do that. Why didn't we choose some other cross-platform thing like Flutter or Xamarin? Well, turns out the fact that most people who are developers know JavaScript. So we went with that. We actually went with TypeScript to get some additional quality controls in type checking and stuff. For the UI framework, we didn't want to try to reinvent so much ourselves, so we tried to reuse something. So we found a UI framework for React Native called UI Kitten, which builds on the EVA design system. Worked really well. So a shout out to these guys who done the UI Kitten. It's awesome. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Now, the actual architecture for the first version looks something like this. We had the Git repo for the React Native app, the school platform app. And we had two NPM libraries, one called Embedded API and one called API hooks. API hooks are basically a wrapper that provides React hooks that we can use inside the React Native app. The Embedded API is just simple, the client-side implementation of their API. And this worked great from the beginning. It had some drawbacks, because React Native is a little bit different than regular React. We couldn't just do all the development local. We had to publish a new version of the embedded API in order to use it. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. We're going to look at that, how we dealt with that a little bit later. Now, on the API hooks is basically just our own custom React hooks for this. That provides the API. API hooks looks like this. So you just wrap your code in the API provider, and we provide you all the entry points for calling the API. And in your code, then, if you have a login controller, you do something like this. So use API, and then you get the reference to that one. So this would actually be useful for you if you want to do bank ID login, because they don't block other apps. Free bank ID login, anyone? Okay. So the routes. What about the API routes? Yeah, we figured all of them out, with the ones that we could start with at least, and we ended up with 13 different routes. 2 for the login, which is if you have ever done bank ID login, you call the login, and then you have to do a login status to check that the bank ID app has verified you. Then there was another route to get a specific cookie. They use a lot of cookies in a very weird way. And then you have the main route for getting a list of all your children. And this is the one, when they started trying to block us, this is the only route they tried to block on. Everything else they left as is. So. But there are, these are the basic routes that we started with there in February last year. In May 2020, well, now, this is the list of the routes that we need. We've added some features that were missing for some other things that wasn't included at first, the schedule and things like that. But those are very few. But basically, we had to add additional routes, which they had introduced themselves in order to make it harder for us to build the app. Okay? Because the city of Stockholm did not like this work. We published an app, we sold an app, that was also something that made them angry. And we had reversed engineered the API. So they were very upset. They asked us to remove the app, and please also remove the code from GitHub, which we had published open source. When we started, before they tried to block us, this is how the code for fetching all your children looks like. A sync function which returns a promise with an array of children. Nothing strange here. There are some cookies added to the session, etc., but nothing weird. We also had a parser where we made a more neutral format, data format that we can work with instead of their own. So they made the first blocking attempt. And we had to update the getChildren function to look like this. Now, so what did they do? Well, they first require you to call the function we call retrieve CDN URL. We still don't know what the CDN means in this context. It's just there in the URL. It gives you a URL. It basically returns a text response with just a URL in it. And then we have to call retrieve auth body, which returns another JSON structure or something. Oh, sorry, a token. And then you take these two and you call retrieve auth token on this URL with this body. And now you get authenticated, but only for this children route, only for the route that is used to fetch the list of your children, not the others. Those were still unprotected. You just had to be logged in. So the retrieve CDN URL looked like that. Okay, fine. And the auth body, same thing there, just text, nothing special. So we just had to make 2 extra calls first to get this. And then once we had the URL and the auth body, we passed that into our retrieve auth token function. And we had to set up the body like this. Now, we didn't get this to work. And we wondered why this didn't work at first. It was strange. We did the same thing as they did, but we didn't get a valid response back. And then we realized, before you call this URL that we fetched there, the CDN URL, with this auth body, we had to clear all tokens. Now, you couldn't just clear all tokens because we needed them later. So we had to clear all tokens, make this call to get the auth token, then set all the tokens again. And now we could get past there and get a response from getChildren. Okay, fine, we'll do that. Takes a little bit longer to log in because this API is not fast. I mean, I've seen response times of about 3, 4, 5 seconds sometimes. Insane. Okay, that was the first blocking attempt. And close to that one, they also added a second blocking attempt. How many here knows what XSRF stands for? Cross-site request forgery. Yeah. That's a good thing to add to your website, maybe, right? Does it prevent apps? No. Well, they added it, so we had to send an XSRF token. Okay, fine. So how do we get the token? It's inside the HTML document that we get back on the first request in a hidden input field. Okay, fetch that home page. Got that one. Decode the HTML. Just query the document for this request verification token and get the value attribute and then add it to all our headers. Done. Fine. So we fixed that, we released a new version, everything started working, and then a few days later it stopped working again, and we were like, okay, what now? They renamed the header. Five times. Okay. So this is a little bit problematic for us because we're developing an app, and anyone who have ever published an app knows that it's not instantly available like a website, right? Okay, we can't just keep publishing an app every day. It will take a couple of hours before Apple approves it or Google approves it. Google also does this today. Okay, let's do it like this. We'll take a JSON file, we put it on our repo so it's publicly available, and then we fetch that one when we start up the app, and then we can just replace whatever they renamed the token to this time. Fine, we did that. It worked. They stopped renaming the token after that. is call the cops instead. So they pressed charges against us to the police, say, okay, you are hacking us. And we're like, okay, this is not how hacking works, but fine. Another guy who was like supporting us, he actually made a YouTube video where he showed how we'd done this with like pressing F12 in Chrome and just getting all the information and published that one. Newspapers were interviewing us, tried to stay neutral and stuff like that, but it was hilarious. Like security people were like, hold on. And the police that we talked to, they said like, this is probably not wrong, but we need to do an investigation because we're the police, we have to do this officially. This was in April, and the police investigation for this is not a prioritized thing. So it took a while, and anyone remember what happened in the summer, last summer? Well, Coop got hacked, or a bunch of companies got hacked. We had this huge, massive hack from a data leak and stuff like that. So the IT forensic department and police had to prioritize other things for a while. So it took until August, and police just closed the case, no action done. This is just like, this is not a crime. Okay. So while they pressed the charges, they were also like, they kept telling us, no, we think this is wrong, you shouldn't do this, we don't believe in user-driven development, we should control what is going out there, etc., etc. And we were like, okay, now it works, we have control over this, they understand they can't block us anymore. So let's focus on building new features. So what we did is we added translations, and we let other people who are not developers also go in and do their own translations. So we got a lot of translations. We now have Ukrainian, we have Latin. Anyone wanna? Because you can. Yeah, so shout out to Karin Nygård, who also designed all the sketches here. She provided us with the Latin translations. I would love to see some other obscure things here, like maybe Klingon or something other weird, but you know, anyone can provide their own translations of this one. Just log in and just provide your PR and it's fine. We also provided dark mode, we did an overhaul of the design, added some nice transitions, and so on. That was kind of cool, very appreciated. We also focused on accessibility. So this is really important for us because we felt like, okay, the official app from Stockholm, the official website from Stockholm is so bad. So if you're not a Swedish-speaking person, you will have trouble navigating this. You have trouble getting information from your children's school. So we need to provide a better way to get this. Even if we can't translate all the content from the school, we could, of course, use Google Translate, but we have this principle of not sending data anywhere. So we don't have any analytics, we don't have any crash reporting at all at the moment. We're looking into how to do this in a privacy-secure way. But we focused on accessibility, and we started fixing stuff. There is still a lot of things to do. But there is this really, really great tool, only available for Android, which is called Accessibility Scanner. So basically, you install the app, you configure it, and then you start that one so that it provides a little overlay in your phone. And then when you run the app, you can get a chance to do a screenshot. It takes a screenshot and grabs you there and checks all the components and see what accessibility issues you have. We're working on fixing the remaining one, but we are getting very close to what's legally required by any official service today, which the official services don't. And we did a lot of other things as well, of course. We added more features, provided them in a smarter way. Like, what is the most important thing that parents want to know in the morning? Well, the kids, do they need the gym bag for the sports or something like that? What are the things they're going to do today? What are the news from things? So, like, providing them in a smart way. Things we couldn't fix is push notifications because we don't own the backend, so we can't send push messages when something in the backend has changed. We can't keep pulling data in the background because the login token that we get from the bank ID login is only valid for 1 hour. So unfortunately, we can't do those things. So you need to go and log in and check things yourself. It's a limitation that comes from doing what we're doing. Someone said that, why don't you have your own server and you do everything through that one. Well, again, privacy, integrity thing, we don't want to have a back-end wrapper sort of thing, because then all your kids' information will be passing through our servers. Well, again, don't want to do that. September came, and the app stopped working. We were like, okay, what now? What number did they add to the header this time? And we downloaded the JavaScript, and we saw this. Oh, they obfuscated the code. Interesting. That means our some things that we did live requesting stuff from the JavaScript, we parsed their JavaScript to fetch information that was changing regularly. It didn't work anymore. And we're like, that's weird. Well, we de-obfuscated this, checked this. Well, see, they really haven't changed anything in the behavior here. Oh, wait, they added a header. They added a header, okay. It's called Topology. Well, they added the client-side key generation. And the code for that looks like this. This is slimmed down a bit. You have a string, which changed every now and then. Every time they deployed, they had a new string of words like this. And then they had a random string with characters. And then they had an index. And using these, they formed a token, which was base64 encoded. And then that had to be sent to the server. And I'm like, okay, so another client-side thing. Didn't stop there. They added a date, well, a current time here, a timestamp. We're like, okay, well, we add a timestamp. This one couldn't be older than a few seconds from the previous call. Okay, so if the user's computer were off, or worse, if the servers were off, which they were, it stopped working, because then our token then this timestamp might be too old. And we're like, oh my God, you can't do this. You can't this isn't valid. But it turned out they only check for how old it is, not how far in the future it is. So we added an hour. And it works. We found all this quite hilarious. It's like, why did you go through all this trouble? This must have taken hours to build. I wouldn't even come up with this myself. It was it feels so random. This index there changed every time they deployed, the words changed, and the string there with the characters changed. It was like, why? Well, it turns out it took a couple of hours. It cost almost 100,000 Swedish crowns to get this delivered for them. This is from we requested the bill for this one and see what it costed. So this was how much Stockholm City paid for this feature. Encryption of scripts. Yeah, obfuscation is not, whatever. 80 hours. Well, I guess it takes 80 hours to build that. But we thought that, well, since the taxpayers have paid for this, the city has asked for this to develop, it should be available to everyone. So we cleaned it up a little bit. We call it phantom crypto, because you can't really see that it's crypto. And we made it more readable. And so this is the code. Here it is. It's available on GitHub, so you can download it. We actually published an NPM library for this one if you want to use it yourself. Go ahead. Don't use it. Okay. Well, we fixed this one, and then there was a bunch of news again that they were going to buy the app from us. It never happened and stuff like that. But at least they stopped trying to block us. For now. We haven't been blocked since. So meanwhile, we were thinking okay, we actually had some other things going on the side, because other cities had showed interest, or other parents who are not parents in Stockholm City had showed an interest, saying, I want this, our app also sucks. Usually the other apps don't suck as much, but they are bad. Anyone here using V-Class? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and the thing is, since we had this multiple NPM libraries published everywhere, we realized that we can't like add another library for each city or each type of school system we're going to do. So we figured out we have to go mono-repo. We had to put everything inside one repo. And React Native is a little bit peculiar because it doesn't support soft links, which made linking inside here to include libraries a little bit difficult. So the mono-repo solution we went for was NX. They actually have a plugin for supporting mono-repo on React Native. So then we could provide our much more improved developer experience by putting everything in one repo, so you could change the API implementation, you can test it without having to publish something. So it basically looks like this. In the architecture, we have the apps folder where you have the various apps we published. We only have the school platform. We also have the website the code for our website there. Then you have a libs folder where we have the API definitions. That is common to all the school platforms. And then we have the Stockholm Skolplattform. We have now the Järntorget, which is the one in Gothenburg. And we've started on the V-class one. Now, in order to build these, since we're not getting any official documentation from anyone, we have to have parents with kids in these schools and with these school systems to help out, which proved a little bit of a problematic thing. So for Gothenburg, for instance, we didn't at that time have anyone with kids in the Gothenburg public schools working, so we had to find someone. And we started searching for that. Because Gothenburg, actually, they contacted us, said, oh, please, can you do this? We can't really provide you with anything, but it would be awesome if we could fix this. Meanwhile, we got featured in so much media, it was ridiculous, but mostly in Sweden. But then we got Wired called us and said, hey, we want to make a feature with your project. So we ended up on Wired.com. If I would ever end up on Wired, I would think it was because I worked on a startup or something, but I guess this counts. Anyway, it was nice. It was later printed in the UK version of Wired, so I have the paper at home and I'm very proud of it. Now, this is when I became a parent. So, because they didn't bother checking all the facts there, I guess it took too much to explain that I'm just helping out because I think it's fun. So yeah, I had friends contacting me, did you get kids? Like, no, we didn't. Anyway, Gothenburg. I was like, who do we know in Gothenburg that can help us? Wait, my brother lives in Gothenburg. He actually is a developer. He'd probably have kids there. He did. I knew that. So there was one person then who just implemented the API. We had the API definitions, so all he had to do was build up on that one and then provide the same responses as we did for the Stockholm one. And voila, the app supported 2 different school systems. So now when you open the app, you get to choose if you're in Stockholm or Gothenburg, and once we get the others working, we can support them as well. Yeah, so big shout out to my brother. Some stats about this. We've done 23 releases, which is more than Stockholm has done. Well, I would say 10 of these is because to just update stuff when they try to block us. But anyway, about 14,000 lines of TypeScript. There are some other code there as well, of course, but this is like the actual code that we have. On top of this are the tests and things like that. So it's not that much code, which is kind of cool. It works. 63 contributors on the project so far. And about half of them, or I would actually say maybe even less, are parents in Stockholm. The rest of them are spread out all through Sweden. We have people up in Sundsvall, up north, who worked on a huge part of the app. One guy who lives in Gothenburg, but unfortunately did not have children in the public school system, he also wrote a significant part of what you're now using when you use this app. So people actually chipped in here, even though they didn't have any stake in it at all. Like, I'm not the only one who didn't have kids in the Stockholm public school. There were a lot of people engaged in this one. And these are only people who did code contributions. Like we have Karin Nygård, who I mentioned before, who did translations, and she also did a lot of the sketches. We have had people who helped us with legal matters, PR and communication stuff like that. There's lots of people who have chipped in here that are not included in these statistics. So it's kind of amazing, all on their spare time. Some more stats. We're an open source app. We're going to show this. We're selling the app for 12 Swedish crowns. We have 11,300 downloads on App Store. I think we have about a third on Android, because Android users are cheap and don't want to pay. I should know, I'm an Android user. Yeah, 58 crashes so far for that period. Kind of good. Anyway, lessons learned from this. First of all, React Native, very low threshold, easily adopted by all developers' backgrounds. We have C# developers, we have C++ developers, I'm an Android developer, and well, I've done a bunch of other things as well. A lot of JavaScript and front-end and back-end developers, etc., etc. So, and the development works on all platforms so far, as far we know. We have people using Linux, we have people using Mac OS, we have people using Windows. Of course, the ones who don't use Mac can't test on iOS, but they can test on Android. React Native support is better for iOS than on Android. We have more problems or quirks and weird things happening on Android, especially when it came to cookie management. So we had to rewrite our own cookie management for a while. And then the React Native updated the HTTP library for Android and things worked better. Performance of React Native is not great. It's acceptable at best. But if you have heavy transitions and or a very, very large app, you're probably going to run into both memory issues and UI performance issues just because of that. Don't try infinite scrolling lists. Other lessons learned. All APIs are open. If it's available on the internet, if it's the HTTP port is open to the internet, it is an open API. You will not be able to prevent people from using that. We kind of proved that. They made some efforts to try to block us, but yeah. So if you annoy users enough, they will fix your shitty app. Also something to know. So if you just stop developing your own app, maybe your users will build it themselves for free. Yeah, if you want people to work for free, make it about their kids. Works well. People were really, really upset about how bad the app were. Okay, that's it. So the code is available here on this GitHub. If you're wondering why it's so weird in the middle, it's a little misspelling when we pushed it out, and we don't want to change it now because there's a lot of things pointing to this. Sorry. Otherwise, you can go to skolplattformen.org and find out more, and the whole history here with links to different news articles and stuff like that. With that, I want to thank you very much for listening. You can reach me on Twitter on Erik Hellman. I'll be around today as well if you have any other questions, and I think we have some time for questions also. I guess the question is, will we support those systems? Yeah. Yes, you're welcome to contribute. We need parents who have kids in that use those systems in order to build this. We have talked to some of the school system providers, and they are semi-open to provide an API. I mean, this business is very strange. Anyone who used one of these public school systems, they know that all the apps are horrible. There are no good, and I'm like, why? Why can't you even make why can't you make it look good at least? Or work well? No. Yeah, some of the systems are really ancient, but yeah, it's strange. Okay, more questions?
So Stockholm obviously has no idea on how to buy software or software development. Have you ever gotten the chance to talk to them and discuss this?
Not with Stockholm. Well, yeah, so have I gotten the chance to talk to Stockholm? We haven't really talked with this because the people that we have talked to in Stockholm are not technically skilled in this matter. They are higher up. And some of them recognize the problem, but we haven't been talking directly officially to the engineers, I would say. Officially. There is more to tell, but I'm not going to bring it up here.
Yeah, maybe it's like a follow-up question, but like, how can this be legal for Stockholm Stad to do this? And does anyone there know how the internet works?
So on the first question, if it's legal, yes, it's not illegal to be incompetent. And to be fair, I don't think that the public sector, like the people who like run our public schools, should know about this. This is a bit of a responsibility to the people who are hired to build this. Like if I build a house, I shouldn't have to know how to build a house when I hire a company to do that. So the companies who do this needs to step up and act a little bit more morally. Now, yeah, what was the second question there? Yeah, probably not. No, I think that this is a lot of, I mean, there probably are like web developers who have no idea how apps really work, and they have probably like, maybe it's outsourced so far out to India or whatever, I don't know. They don't care, probably, I don't know.
So in talking about this with people, I've heard one like argument, arguing for the devil or whatever it's called, that they had to do this so expensively because they had to really support child privacy. They really had to like follow all the laws. Do you think there's any credibility to that argument, that kind of like explains why this was
yeah,
like
so the credibility, if they have to follow all the laws from GDPR and privacy and things like that, yes, that would be valid if they did. But, I mean, they already got well, there was a case where they actually leaked information. Early on when it was first released, one guy, he's not a developer, but he's a tech journalist, I think, or something like that, and he found out that if you go in and change the query parameters for the API calls in the beginning, you can fetch any children or any parents or any information at all, so there was no protection at all. The Stockholm city got sued, and they had to pay a fine for 4 million Swedish crowns for that one. So yeah, I think that answers your question. No, they don't care, because they don't know.
Actually, it doesn't, because you can fail with this, anyone can fail with this, and you might still be paying for it. So while it's an interesting story, but no, it's not the direct answer.
Yeah, but they have repeated problems as well. This is not the only one. So we during our journey here, we have found security and privacy issues continuously, which we have reported to them. We have not gone out public with them, of course, as you should. But yeah.
Thanks.
I think it's one there.
Yeah, it's a follow-up question to that one. So Skolplattformen, if I understand it correctly, is sort of a glue between 6 or 8 different companies or
services, yeah.
Services, exactly. So while the Skolplattform itself might cost money because of the privacy issues, these different companies doesn't have to have the same high standard. So the problem you were discussing, that was in relation to a specific company, I guess, that just...
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the school system we have on the Swedish market, and I guess the international market, are very old. Because I guess the needs for such a system hasn't really changed much. You have to have a schedule, you have to have be able to publish news back to the parents and stuff like that. It's like the set of features required by the users doesn't change over time very much, right? Kids will still go to school in the same way. So I think that a lot of this system doesn't have to change. It doesn't have to get updated. And they don't have to support new principles and practices. They just keep building on it. Because, I mean, once you get into school and the school bought it, they won't change it. So it's free money for you for a long time, and you just provide minimal support for it. It is sad. Another reason why we should just, like when public financed software should just be open source, so we don't have to suffer this.
mentioned accessibility in the app before, especially considering languages, which is really important. Did you notice any problems with the app that you have fixed regarding accessibility for disabilities?
Yes. The first version we had, we realized like the schedule we had and the things like that weren't really accessible. It got a little bit cluttered, which maybe is fine if you have the patience to sit there and look it through. And the accessibility scanner I had here was complaining a lot about that view as well. So we redesigned a lot of that one. We had a UX designer helping us also to like give us ideas and how to improve this. And we ran the accessibility scanner on that one. It's not perfect yet. We still have some fields there. Like one challenge with accessibility is if let's say you have a list of stuff with the repeated elements and you have to put an accessibility label on them, you have to have a different label on each item, and things like that makes it difficult how to provide that in a good way. So it's not simple to get really good at accessibility, but I think it's really important because as a parent, stressed parent in the morning with one kid here and you have the phone in the wrong hand and you have the other one running around crazy and you're going to figure out what they're going to wear to school today. That's everyday accessibility for everyone. So that's why I think it's really important. So yeah, we're still struggling with some views and things like that. Yeah, we do. Okay, there are more questions here.
Are you planning on building an own school platform with your own API to sell to schools?
If we're planning to build our own, yes, no, we're definitely not planning to sell something like that at a school. What we could do is if a school will pay us, we will do something open source. It's a bigger work to do the whole system. So we will not sell a commercial system that is closed source. That I can say today.
Yeah, thanks for your talk and sharing this. I was wondering, do you have any good references for Stockholm Stad to look at when it comes to open data and how to build the organization around it?
Good reference. Our app. No, but I think this is a challenge because most of us, we interact with the public sector in different way in these services, but for each part of the services they have, it's usually limited. Like your kids are in school for a limited time and you just want it to be done with this. If you're gonna build a house, you need a housing permit and you hold all those services there. It's just a limited period of time. So I think we need a change on the overall layer, higher level there, saying, okay, if it's going to be a public funded system, it has to be open source. So we don't have just one vendor who can live on this forever. We can just have someone else come in and take over. The company I work for, we do a lot of these kind of systems. We have like this research system, we have the public system that some companies have done, and we try to push them when it's possible to do it open source, just so they don't get dependent on us, because we don't think that is fair. So I think it's, that's something we should think about. Like, if you're working for public money and then try to push them to do it open source, it makes more sense. More question. You're getting free exercise.
While you were working on bypassing the API, did they know that it was you who were working on this app when they tried to block you? Because it sounds to be quite unethical.
Yeah. Did they try to block us individually? I think that they didn't even try to go there, because if blocking me wouldn't have mattered because I don't have any kids in Stockholm Stad. But the thing is, like, the whole Stockholm City's system uses the same login. So if they would block me, I wouldn't be able to use the public services that I have the legal right to. So they are not allowed to block me. Now, what we did when Christian started this, he was actually thinking of having this like middleware server lying in the beginning there. We dropped that idea very quickly. But that IP for that machine got blocked because it made too many requests. So we know that they can block it, but they never did block us individually. But yeah, So I don't know if that's answered your question. You mean when we, like, trying to block us, but my ID, sort of? No, and if they would break the law themselves, because then I can't access the Stockholm systems. So, yeah.
Okay, final question.
So the feature which you discussed, most of the features are the pull kind of a feature that you will have a GET request. But did you come across an API where you have to post the data and they were allowing you to post the data as well? Or were they blocking it?
There are, how to say that? Yeah, so are there any feature where we post data back? No, there are nothing in the app today. There is one feature we would like to have, and that is to report absence for your children. The Stockholm system doesn't really support that in a good way. But what we did there was we generate an SMS. So we generate a text message that you can and then you just go in there and send it, and then you report absence for your children.
Okay, actually I also wanted to ask about that if you want to report an absence, you have to push the data towards their server. And if you're not getting that necessary support which you're expecting from them, then it won't be available. It will be a limitation of your app, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, a similar thing is push notifications. So when the school publishes news, or when the teacher sends out a message to all the parents, we can't get that push message because we don't have access to their servers. We can't get the token required to register the push notification. That's a limitation that we have today. We've actually asked them to help us provide that so we can register to get those tokens, but they say, we will look at it, and then we never heard anything. So the official app has push notification support. Poorly, you get spammed. But yeah, so yeah, there are things we can't do when we work with someone who doesn't want to work with us. So, okay, I think that was the last. Okay, one more. Yeah, yes, go ahead. I will repeat your question.
Have you kept any track of how much time you put into the app development?
Oh, God, no. I have not tracked how much time I put into this. I think my wife have. No, and yeah, there is a significant amount of time being put in here. But considering the stats I had here before, it's a good thing to hear. This is how much code it is today. It is actually not super much code. Thanks to like using the nice UI framework that we found, and like having some really skilled JavaScript and TypeScript developers, we've managed to like make this really smooth. My brother implemented the API for Gothenburg and got it working without doing any UI changes, and I think it took him like 2 weeks, something like that, on his spare time. Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Erik.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'll be around for the rest of the day as well if you have any more questions. Feel free to come and ask.